Welcome in, everybody. This is your self-care staffing for Tuesday, May 12th, 2020. I am Lou Pascal. I'm the school social worker in the Manchester City Schools in Manchester, Tennessee. Today, I want to talk about what I wish everyone knew and truly believed about self-care. There is so much knowledge out there about self-care. I don't think we always act as if we believe some of the tenets about self-care. So here are some that I want to just briefly touch on. The first one, not hard to guess what I'm going to say. Self-care is not selfish. I don't think most people walk through the world with a completely selfish attitude 100% of the time. That they're the most important person, nothing anybody else wants matters, me, all the time. I don't think most people walk through the world that way. I will grant, there are people that's their attitude all the time, it's all about them all the time. But I don't think most people are like that. Most of you who are watching this, you may be a school social worker, you may be some sort of helping professional, parent, spouse, family member, spiritual leader, teacher, administrator. Many of you in those professions and others, many of you, the way you walk through the world is you have other people's needs and wants as your priority most of the time. And again, I've said before, that makes the world go round. I'm not trying to pull you back from that. I'm just saying that it is not selfish to, at the time that you need to, whether that's daily, weekly, monthly, however often you need to, it is not selfish to figure out what your self-care practices are and implement those in your life. That is not selfish. It is not selfish to nurture yourself, comfort yourself, replenish, rejuvenate, refresh yourself. That is not selfish. Here's another one. Self-care is for you first. I've done so much study of self-care over the years, and nearly every piece of self-care material that I have encountered says one or two of the same things to begin as the reason for self-care. They say the most common one is when you're on an airplane and there's turbulence and the plane may be going down, you need to put your mask on first, your oxygen mask on first before you try to help someone else. The other thing that people say is you can't pour from an empty cup. Now, is there some truth to those things? Yes. That's why people say those things, and that's why those things become cliche, is because there is some truth to that. It is very difficult to nurture other people and to pour into other people if you have not taken care of yourself. What I think gets lost in all that is giving the main reason for self-care as so you can be there for other people. What I'm saying is, yes, that's a byproduct. Yes, that's going to happen if you do self-care. What I'm saying is you are worthy of self-care. You are worthy of comfort, nurture, all those things. If it never benefits anyone else, you as a human being, as a person, are worthy of self-care. It is okay for your number one reason for self-care to be because you have worth in this world. So I just want to push back against that a little bit, that our main reason for self-care is so that we can fill ourselves up so we can go do for other people. We are going to do for other people. Again, those of you who watch this, the things that you do for other people, as I've said before, makes the world go round. Those things make the world go round, and the world is a better place because of the care that you show for other people. And I would not try to pull you back from that. I want you to recognize, and I want to encourage you, that you in yourself have worth as a person to prompt some nurture of yourself. So, self-care is for you first. Self-care is sometimes not fun. There are things that you need to do that your future you will thank you for. There are things that you need to do that are in your best interest. There are things that you need to do that serve you that are not fun. Many, many, many examples of that, but it's not all massages and lattes and pedicures. Those are okay things to do. Those are self-care practices. But that's an incomplete picture of self-care if you think that that's what it's about all the time. It's not. Sometimes self-care is doing those things you don't want to do because you know it's good for your future, or you know it's good for your present. It's just in your best interest. So self-care is sometimes not fun. Here's a big one. Self-care does not have to cost anything, but it is okay if it does cost money. You are worthy of that. I think no cost or low cost self-care ideas are great. I really do. And I gave some the other day. I gave a video of just in the Hygge video, I gave some things that were low cost or no cost. But it is okay if it costs money. I feel like most people work hard and work diligently to make money, to support your family, so you can have a nice life. And it is okay to spend some of that money on yourself. You don't have to call it a guilty pleasure. You don't have to call it a splurge. It's okay for it to just be something that you want, and for you to spend money on that, and to spend a lot of money on it. If that is what you have identified as your self-care practice, that is okay. You don't want to endanger your financial future over it, obviously. You want it to be a smart financial decision, but I don't think most of us are into this idea that we work like dogs our whole lives and we don't get to enjoy it. That's not, or we feel like we have to make excuses or justify spending a considerable amount of money on our own nurture. So, here is your self-care check-in question for today. And I really want you to think about this. What are your beliefs about self-care, and how are they shaping your self-care practices? So really think about, don't just kind of fall back on the answer that you think is right. Like, what do you really deep down in your soul believe about self-care? What do you believe about your own self? What do you believe about nurturing yourself? And once you've identified those beliefs, how are those beliefs shaping your self-care practices? So I'll answer that. I didn't do self-care at all for a while because I thought it was my job to fix everything, and I thought I could do that by being perfect. And that didn't leave a lot of room for self-care. So I was always trying to either fix things in my life, fix things in other people's lives. And one of the ways that I thought that I fixed things was by doing perfectionism. And when you're doing perfectionism, that's not really very conducive to self-care. Maybe I should start thinking about, how do I do perfect self-care? That could either really take a lot of enjoyment out of it, or maybe that would spur me to improve my self-care practice. I don't know. Anyway, that was my those were my beliefs about myself and my beliefs about self-care, and the way that that manifested was that I didn't do a lot of self-care. So here's a quote. You guys have probably seen this. I don't know who said this originally. I've seen it in a lot of places, but the quote is, "You are not required to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm." So you are not required to let yourself get completely run down, depleted, completely out of stamina to continue to provide care for other people. I do not have a song today, but the video that I'm going to show does have a little bit of music in the beginning, so maybe you can think of that as the song. I've been in quite a few webinars lately and over the years about self-care. One of the best practices that I've been shown is called starfish breathing. It's extremely easy, and it's one of those no-cost self-care practices. And I know we talk a lot about breathing and mindfulness and meditation in self-care, but I really do think, and I find this in my work with students, we say all those things, but I don't know how intentional we are to really do breathing, to stop, to take some time, stop everything, and do some breathing. And it is so beneficial to do that. So this video that I'm going to leave with you refers to it as 5-finger breathing. So you use your hand. It's either starfish or 5-finger breathing. But anyway, I really encourage you to watch this video and give it a try. It does not take long. It does not take long. You have a few minutes if you will take the time, and I think you'll be benefited by doing this exercise. The video that I want to leave with you today is a TED Talk, and it's called Self-Care, What It Really Is. And there were a couple of things that I liked about the video. Number one, I liked that she made a point to talk about there being an industry that wants to convince you that self-care costs money and you need their product to buy it. Now, like I said, it is okay to spend money on self-care. It is absolutely okay to spend money on self-care. It's okay to spend a lot of money on self-care. However, just recognize that there's definitely an industry. There is a huge, probably billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar industry, self-care industry, and the objective is to convince you that you need a certain product to do self-care. Now, you may like that product, you may decide that you need that in your life, but just recognize that there is a very large, very profitable industry about self-care, focused on self-care, and that their objective is to get you to purchase their product or service. She also gives another example of learning self-care to take better care of others. So she talks about changing professions and going into a profession where she was a helping professional and her self-care was really non-existent before she changed professions, and she realized very quickly that she was going to have to do better self-care in order to be able to give to the people in her profession. That's another example of the rhetoric around self-care, is that we do it for other people. And again, I just want to push back against that a little bit and say that you are enough of a reason. You are worthy enough to do self-care just for your own benefit, purely for your own benefit. That is valid. I was also glad to hear her talk about what I call a self-care detective, someone who asked her what she did for self-care. So, like I've said several times, I think, that's one of the big things that I want to know. Like when I'm studying self-care, I want to know exactly what people are doing. What are your practical strategies for self-care? That's why I gave those things in the Huga video the other day. What are those practical things beyond get a massage, get a latte, get a pedicure? What are those things, even tiny things that you do in your life, or maybe large things that you do in your life that are your self-care strategies? I always want to know exactly what people are doing for their self-care, because I'm always looking for ideas for myself. So again, back to the idea of doing self-care for other people, doing self-care so that you'll have the resources, the reserves to pour into other people. That is an okay place to start. It is okay to start there, that you want to replenish yourself so that you have it to give to other people. That's an okay place to start, but I personally don't want you to stay there. I want you to be your number one reason to practice self-care. So I'm going to leave those things with you today. I will link those for you. Again, I want to request that if you find these videos helpful, please subscribe on YouTube. Again, I made a commitment in the beginning that I was going to make a video about self-care for every day of the school closures due to COVID-19. So that has been going on since mid-March, and I will have videos for the rest of this week and all of next week. But the end of next week is the end of the school year in the school district where I work. So that is sort of the natural end of this commitment. But I am thinking about if I'm going to continue with this, what it's going to look like. I'm sure it will be somewhat different. But if you're interested in more information from me about self-care, please subscribe so that I know that that interest is there and I can consider that as I look toward what may be next for me delivering self-care content. If all hearts and minds are clear, I will see you all back here tomorrow for another self-care staffing.